rock solid contracts. Are you ready to level up and take your creator business to that next level? Contracts are the key to protecting yourself, your business, and your relationships. So stick around, because in today's episode, we're diving into how to master the art of contracts. This is step 4 in our 5-step creator success framework. Here we go. Hey there, creator friends. I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and welcome back to our series, the 5-step framework for success as a creator business. Today, we are talking about contracts. Yeah, I know contracts sound boring, but trust me, this is one of the most important steps for building a sustainable and successful creator business. If you're just joining us, this is the 4th in our series. Don't forget to check out the previous episodes on treating your podcast like a business, building your team, securing your intellectual property, and you can find them all right here on the channel on YouTube or in the podcast feed. And all of the kinds of contracts that I'm talking about today and a deeper dive into this contract drafting strategy and techniques are included inside my Easy Legal for Podcasters program over at easylegalforpodcasters.com. So let's just get right into it. Why contracts matter. Contracts aren't just boring legal documents full of fine print. They are your opportunity to establish clear expectations, protect your interests, and build strong relationships. Whether it's a partnership or a sponsorship or a freelancing agreement, a good contract can make or break your success. Let me tell you, I've seen too many creators get burned by handshake deals or poorly written agreements or frankly, just, assumptions without there really being an agreement. So don't let that be you. A well-drafted contract is like insurance. You hope you never have to rely on it, but when something goes wrong, you'll definitely be glad it's there. So let's get into this and talk about when drafting or reviewing contracts, specificity and precision really have to be non-negotiable. Every clause in the contract should be clear and leave no ambiguity, no room for interpretation, because those ambiguities in contract language are what lead to misunderstandings and disputes and costly battles. For example, instead of saying deliver content regularly, specify deliver one podcast episode every Tuesday by 5 p.m. Pacific time, or something along those lines. Rather than saying a reasonable payment, specify the amount, a payment of $500 due within 15 days of receipt of invoice or whatever. Details like this, like timelines, payment terms, and deliverables, should be as specific as possible. This kind of clarity is what protects the parties and minimizes the risk that there might be a dispute. If you're unsure how to make your contracts airtight, you can check out my custom-tailored, attorney-drafted forms and templates designed specifically for podcasters like you over at our site, podcastlawforms.com. All right, so what are some of the key elements of a good contract? Well, let's break it down. Here they are, the core elements that every good contract needs. First off is the parties. A contract is between 2 or more parties, and to be enforceable against any of them, it needs to specify who they are. Second up is clear terms and scope. So spell out exactly what each party is agreeing to. What's being delivered, when, and how. Vagueness is a real enemy here. Payment details. Whether it's a flat fee or royalties or revenue sharing, make sure it's crystal clear how and when payments will be made. Ownership of the work. Who owns the stuff that's being created? If you are hiring someone, is it done as a work made for hire where you own the stuff? If you're being hired, are you doing it? Are you going to own the stuff, or are they? You got to nail this down to avoid confusion or disputes. And let me tell you, work made for hire, it's very specific language that has to find its way into the contract in order to be effective under the law. So be careful and make sure you're using the right wording. Confidentiality and non-disclosure is next. Protect your sensitive business information. Include confidentiality clauses to ensure that your ideas and strategies don't find themselves walking out the door with your workers or the people that you're engaging in business with. And termination clauses. How can that contract be brought to its end? What happens if one party breaches the agreement? These kinds of details will save you lots of headaches down the road. Next up is dispute resolution, because nobody likes to think about disagreements, but planning for them really makes good sense. Mediation, arbitration, and choosing which state's law is going to govern the contract is all a part of the deal and should be dealt with early on. All right, so what do you do if your counterparty breaches the contract? Well, breaches happen, but how you handle them matters. So here's my preferred approach. First, start friendly. Reach out to the other party in a polite and friendly tone. Sometimes a simple conversation is all it takes to resolve the issue. A minor misunderstanding or a small oversight can often be corrected without escalating things too much. Document everything. Keep records of all your communications and agreements. And if you do reach an understanding to resolve the breach, confirm that in writing too. A simple email just saying, hey, John, thanks very much for the conversation today. In order to move forward without any further problems, we've agreed as follows, A, B, C, and D. And then, would you mind just responding and saying, yeah, we're on board, so we know we're done. Now you've just made a sort of an amendment of the contract, and that works. Send a formal notice. If a friendly approach doesn't work, then you send a formal notice of the breach. It doesn't have to be a legalese kind of a document, but it needs to be sort of a, hey, take notice that we think you're in breach. Outline what the breach is and ask for a resolution within a specific time frame. Often enough, that is what it takes to get them to act and do the right thing. But if that doesn't work, consult a lawyer. If it's significant and it remains unresolved for any meaningful period of time, talk to your attorney. Talk to me. Sometimes a letter from a lawyer carries enough weight to get things back on track, and you don't have to resort to this last step, litigation. Only escalate to litigation when the breach is serious and can't be resolved otherwise. And of course, when there's a business case to be made for incurring the expense and the time and the headache and the contribution of resources to the litigation. It can be expensive and time consuming. So think hard and weigh the pros and cons carefully. And your lawyer will be able to help advise you about whether litigation really makes sense in certain situations. The most important thing is that when these breaches happen, avoid jumping right to threats or lawsuits at the first sign of trouble. Building and maintaining a professional relationship should always be a priority because most breaches can be fixed if you smooth the way and ask for a collaborative approach. So here are a few tips for negotiating your contracts. I guess that didn't have the slide right. Anyway, a few quick tips to help you navigate the negotiation process. First, know your worth. Don't undersell yourself. Know the value you bring to the table. Next, ask questions. If something isn't clear, ask for clarification before moving on and signing contract. Get it in writing. Always, always, always put your agreements in writing. Once you get to a full agreement, that's when you want to do that. And I say using a lawyer makes a lot of sense. Having a lawyer draft a review, especially for complex contracts, can save you from costly mistakes. But it's not the only way. You can get templates and forms from like our site at podcastlawforms.com that have, we've thought through most of these details already. So you can, kind of add Mad Lib it where you just fill in the amounts and the timelines and the dates and things like that. And most of the time you can get a pretty good contract going just that way. So here are some examples of the kinds of contracts that you might need. In your business, you might deal with guest release forms. We have a free template for that one over at podcastrelease.com. Please come over there and grab that. Sponsorship agreements, freelance contractor agreements, like for your virtual assistant, your editor, maybe you have a videographer or researchers working on your show, things like that. Collaboration agreements are important, as well as co-host agreements or co-production. If you're working with someone, you're going to be equal partners. Licensing agreements, just a few examples of this. And inside the Easy Legal for Podcasters program, we cover all of this in much greater depth. And all of the templates and forms are included along with step-by-step instructions to help you create solid agreements to protect your business. So having good contracts in place really gives you the kind of confidence you need to move forward, take the big, bold risks that drive and propel growth in your business, and you can really see some big changes and growth in your business. So it's like putting a safety net under your high wire act. And if you are ready to level up your knowledge, be sure to check out my secret video where I share even more tips and strategies on how to level up your podcasting game with a few important structures and principles. It's at gordonfiremark.com/levelup. So listen, if you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube, or share it with friends, those kinds of things, so you won't miss any future episodes in the series. Step 5 is coming up next week. Complying with laws and regulations is our topic. And if you are ready to access all the podcast-specific lawyer-generated legal forms and templates that you need to establish solid business relationships, Podcast Law Forms is the place you want to go. So, thank you for joining me today. Stay creative, stay protected, and stay legit. I'll see you again real soon.